Morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us. We are on chapter 34, verse 13. We left yesterday with questions in terms of the story of Shimon and Levi and Dinah and Shechem and Shimon and Levi killing all the male inhabitants of the city. Yaakov is angry with them, but it started with the verse that the sons of Yaakov spoke in a cunning way in terms of convincing the male members of the city to have a circumcision. So what's the story? What's their rationale? If Yaakov thought it was such a bad thing, why didn't he speak up at the moment when they said what they said? He doesn't fault the sons in general. He specifically faults Shimon and Levi. It seems like all the sons were there at the time. There's a lot of confusion in this story. So let's see the Ramban. Ramban on Pasuk Yud Gimel. Vayanuv Yaakov v'Shechem v'Eschamor aviv b'mirma. Hine Chamor u'Shechem el avia v'Elachea dibru. Shechem is the person who had taken Dinah and now wants to marry her. Chamor is his father. We always have to be careful when adult children present themselves with their parents. You never know what they're up to as a team. But in any event, they presented themselves to her father and her brothers. Yaakov doesn't respond at all. Kibanav Yidabru bimkomo. His sons are doing all the speaking. Why is that? Binyan hazel l'chvodo. The reason why they're doing all the speaking is an honor. It's a way of showing kavod to Yaakov. This is such a disgraceful topic. You know, these people. He took this man's daughter. Now he wants to make a marriage arrangement. The sons are speaking for Yaakov, not to be disrespectful, but to be exceedingly respectful. They think this is such an unpleasant thing. They don't want their father to even have to deal with it. So he sort of is aware of what's going on, but they're handling with it. They're handling it. Yesh kan she'ela, but there's a real question to ask over here. Shadavar nira kibrit son avio batsaso anu. The implication of the psukim is they're doing this with their father's consent, meaning what they're saying is with their father's consent. Ki lefanav hayu, they were in his presence. Vuhu hayodeyamanam ki b'mirma yidaberu. It's obvious that they're pulling a trick on Shechem and Chamor. This whole business about a bris, and then once you do a bris, we'll be happy to make shidduchim with you guys. There's no way that they mean that. He knows it's a scam. V'im kain lo makos. So why does he get angry at them later? He was there the whole time. If he thought it was bad, he should have stopped them then and there. Va'od, it's inconceivable that Yaakov thought this was a good idea, that his daughter would marry the non-Jewish fellow who had already been with her. They all responded in this cunning way, all of the brothers. And Shimon and Levi were the only ones who followed up on it, though. It's so strange. The brothers as a whole make this suggestion, and that Shimon and Levi are the only ones to follow up on it. What was the other brothers' plan? Did they really mean that they do the shidduch if there was a marriage? Did they mean that? Hard to believe. And yet, Yaakov only curses the wrath of Shimon and Levi and not the others. Batshuva. The answer is, Kiamirma haisab amram limo lachem kol zachar. Here's what's going on. The trickery, the cunning, is the instruction that they should all get a bris. Ki chashvu shelo yasu kain b'nei ha'ir. They didn't think they'd go through with it. They said, listen, we'd really love to make a marriage with you all, but everybody in your town has to have a bris. What are the odds of that happening? It's important to recognize Dinah is not with them. Dinah is in Shechem's residence right now. She's been taken. This is a hostage situation that Shechem and his father are trying to turn into a story that ends beautifully with a very happy wedding and everyone has smiles on their faces. So the plan A of Yaakov's sons is let's just say, yeah, we're really in. See, if we say no way, no sir, no how, we're back to a hostage situation. If we say we think this is a great idea, but we just need all of the men of your city to have a bris, they're going to turn us down. And then we'll say, oh, too bad. I guess we should take Dina home now. So they've lowered the temperature and they've created a situation where Shechem doesn't even want their agreement. So fine. And let's say the city goes through with it. Then yes, they'll come in on the third day. But do you know what they'll do? They'll take Dina and run. Their plan won't be to kill Shechem and Hamor and all the men. This will be, they'll save the hostage and they'll get out of there. And it'll be a good day to save the hostage because all of the soldiers in the city and all the men are all recovering from a bris. V'zos atzas kol ha'achim u'bershusavim. That was the plan. It is tricky, but as we said yesterday, it's tricky to the person who raped their daughter and sister. The Shimon Levi, but Shimon and Levi had a whole different plan. Shimon and Levi didn't just want to save Dina. Shimon and Levi wanted to punish the people who had done this. They went and killed all the men of the town. And that's why Yaakov didn't jump in when the offer was made about the bris, because Yaakov thought that was a good idea. It's a great way to save Dina. But that's why Shimon and Levi are the only ones to follow through, because the other brothers were not planning on attacking. The other brothers were just planning on saving Dina. Shimon and Levi were the only ones interested in attacking. And that's why on his deathbed, or even before, Yaakov is very critical, specifically of Shimon and Levi. V'yitochen shoyakas Yaakov shara apam al shahargu anshe ha'ir asher lo chatu lo. V'roi lohem sheyargu Shechem levada. Now, the Ramban says, it's possible that Shimon and Levi weren't completely wrong. It's possible that Yaakov would not object to their having killed Shechem and Hamor. In other words, Shechem did this terrible thing to their sister. Maybe it makes sense to punish him in this way. But the thing that's utterly deplorable about what they said, what they did, is what does that have to do with all the men of the city? Maybe it's appropriate to punish Shechem and Hamor, but everybody. V'zeu masha amar hakasov v'yanuvnei Yaakov Eshchem v'Chamor aviv b'mirma v'ydaberu asher timei eis Dinoach osam. The same pasuk we mentioned yesterday. It says they spoke with a sense of cunning to the one who defiled Dina, their sister. Ki kulam hiskimu l'daber lo b'mirma. Everyone was in agreement to speak in this tricky way to Shechem and Hamor. Ba'avur hanavala she'asa lahem. Everyone agreed that this was fair play for the person who did this to them, and most importantly, their sister. So it's possible that Yaakov's criticism of Shimon and Levi is not that they killed anyone, it's that they killed everyone. That's possible. Not clear, says the Ramban, but possible. For Rabbim Yishalu, and many asked the question, how could it be that they did this? How could they be thinking this? So the Rambam says that one of the Noachite laws is to have a legal system, a judicial system. There are 7 Noachite laws, and one of them is to have a judicial system so that they have responsibility to enforce these other Noachite laws. And the rule is that a non-Jew who violates one of the Noachite laws may be killed for his violation of the Noachite laws. The Rambam says, and if one of the Noachite laws is to have a sense of justice, so that means that if someone sees someone violating one of the Noachite laws and doesn't do anything about it, they themselves deserve retribution, because they're not being diligent about the Noachite law of having a sense of justice. And therefore, all of the people of the city deserve to die. Shechem kidnapped someone. Shechem stole. They saw and they did nothing. And therefore, says the Rambam, they're all chayiv misa. they all deserve to be killed because as a town, as a neighborhood, as a city, they're not observing the Noachite law of a sense of justice. Says the Ramban, I don't think this is correct. So then, if the Rambam is right, why didn't Yaakov lead the charge? Yaakov criticizes them. According to the Rambam, Yaakov didn't know this. So that's his first question. So the basic gist is regarding the specific point the Rambam says about the obligation that everyone has. The Ramban says, listen, there has to be a judicial system, but if you're going to say that every time you see someone violate a Noachite law, you have to stop them, and if you don't stop them, you're chayav misa, that's a very steep hill. And he also points out, why are Yaakov and his sons not running all over the world, killing everyone they see who does idol worship? That's also a Noachite law. I mean, where does it end? So it's a very interesting shot for the Rambam, but it's difficult, of course. Skipping far ahead. In mine, it's a new paragraph. Aval Inyan Shechem. It's probably around 40 lines where we left off. Aval Inyan Shechem, Kibnei Yaakov, Bavur Shayu Anshe Shechem Rishoyim, V'damam Chashuv Laim Kamayim, Ratzu Linakim Mehem B'cherev No Kemes, V'hargu HaMelech V'chol Anshe Iro Ki Avadav Heim, V'sar Mamushmato. Okay, so basically, he says it's not that they were all chayiv misa per se. It's not that they deserved to die because of what happened in their town. Shechem deserved to die because of what he did to Dinah. Chamor deserved to die because of his clearly aiding and abetting what Shechem did. The rest of them are their soldiers. Could you imagine that? Can you imagine that in a military setting? You know, think of Entebbe for a second. Maybe Entebbe's a bad example. I'm sorry. Think of a military setting. For whatever reason, one country decides to attack another country. So sit there and say, but let's think about which soldiers deserve to die and which soldiers don't deserve to die. Are you joking? That's the best way to get killed. You're coming in. You're going to try to kill the head of the town. They're going to kill you unless you kill them first. That's the dynamic. That's the deal. Then the Ramban asks, wait a second. These people just got a bris. Maybe they're ready to become the first members of Congregation Shechem, a new shul opening in Shechem, Young Israel of Shechem. So he says, come on, this was not serious. This was clearly just to allow the marriage to Ma'alfa Shechem and Chamor. It's a very famous discussion. I just want to sum it up. The bottom line is we're saying that Yaakov knew the trick, but the trick wasn't certainly not to kill the town, or the males of the town. Maybe the trick was not to kill anybody. The intended trick was just to get Dinah out of there, or have them back off and say, we're not interested in a bris, have a great day. Here's your daughter back. That's why Yaakov was angry at Shimon and Levi, because Shimon and Levi took this to a whole different level that the other brothers had not intended. Regarding Shimon and Levi's rationale, the Rambam says their rationale was that the entire city deserved to die because they clearly did not have a sense of justice by the fact that this was allowed to happen. The Ramban says, no, Shechem and Chamor deserve to die. And just the reality is, if you're going to go in to kill Shechem and Chamor, you have to be ready to kill everybody else, because if not, they'll kill you. So it's a very, very famous discussion.